Hi, my name is Kina Neisuupi Pua Rangamar. I'm a Refaluwasch. I'm from the village of Oleai, the island of Saipan, and the Marianas is my home. I was born and raised here. When I was growing up, I was raised by my aunt for a good majority of my childhood because both my parents had to work. That's pretty common in Carolinian culture for us to kind of just go stay with like our aunts or our uncles, be with our cousins. Like it's just very common, right? Family being close and all. There's one story that I particularly remember. I don't know why, it was just something that was always so like interesting to me. I've just remembered it since, but I wanted to read from it so that it's more accurate. So there once lived a Carolinian family. This story in particular focuses on two brothers. One was known to be a troublemaker and the other his mediator. Their dad was a chief and their mom was a doctor. And nearby to the island was a smaller and secluded one. Many of these villagers knew not to visit as it's considered taboo. There were known to be spirits, and visiting that place would mean risking your life. One day, the brothers and the crew went out fishing. Prior to this trip, the father had warned the older brother about watching over his younger one. And his mom had warned him about the island, saying that the spirits are smart and will more than likely trick you, so you must be wise when visiting. Unfortunately, a storm hit them while in the water, so they decided to take a break and seek that island. The naughty brother had suggested that. Hesitantly, they all made their way back to the island. And as they made their way back, they were greeted by one sole inhabitant, this one old man. He was very welcoming, and instantly the crew felt at ease, but the oldest brother was still on edge. He offered to bring in the canoe for them, and the crew had agreed. But the older brother had already suspected he'd probably destroy the canoe and assured him that they had it handled. So the crew grudgingly brought up the canoe, paddles, and stored it accordingly. The old man then brought them to the main ut, where there were gallons of water that the crew could use to shower. He said, "Please feel free to use these and shower. This one is our warm water, great for you to use after your long travel." The crew was elated and grateful, but the older brother remained hesitant. "Okay, thank you for your generosity," he said. And as the old man leaves to let them shower, the older brother quickly stops the crew. "None of you must touch the warm water. Instead, shower with the gallons of cold water." The younger brother disagrees, but he and the rest of the crew begrudgingly shower with the cold water, not knowing the old man's plan was to get them tired with the warm water. When they're done, they head to where the fire is and where the old man was cooking for them. They begin eating, and he suggests that he'll tell stories for them as they fall asleep. As the night grows and the crew start to get noticeably tired, the older brother notices that the islander is still wide awake. Finding this odd, he quickly calls his younger brother to the side. "I want you to go and fetch me as much brown coconut you can find. Make it quick and hide it after." So the younger brother sets off and comes back with a sack of coconuts. The older brother quickly opens them up and calls his crew one by one. He instructs them to paint them over their eyelids in case they fall asleep. So as they all finish up, the islander continues with his storytelling. And slowly, the crew began to fall asleep. Even the younger brother closes his eyes to rest. The old man, after every story, peeks at the crew to see who's asleep so that he could take their soul. But each time he does, he's disappointed to find out that their eyes are still open. Alas, the morning comes and the crew start to wake up and stretch. The old man, disappointed that he wasn't able to trick this crew at all, follows them as they bid him farewell and set up their canoe. As they set forth, the older brother reveals all of the old man's tricks to the crew. "You are all very lucky we didn't end up stuck on that island." Shocked that they didn't notice, the crew thanked him and they headed back home. So, hearing it at first glance, right, like as a kid growing up, it was very interesting. There was just a lot of layers to that, right? Like from, I guess, the forewarning where his parents were telling him, like, you know, all these warnings and preparing them for the journey ahead. And then I guess also like one really big key factor for me that really stood out was that they only told the eldest brother, right, at that, because I guess in the culture for me, I feel like the oldest always bears the responsibility. And I think that's very common, right, as the oldest sibling. But that was something that really stood out to me and was reiterated throughout parts of the story. You could just see that he was the one that was always like alert and just very well aware, like sort of just assumed the leadership role, right? And then like throughout the other parts of the story, you start to see like aspects of the culture and values that we hold very like prominent. So for me, like two values that really stood out in this story was humility and respect. Because in Caribbean culture, respect is like utmost like number one core value for us. So humility for me would be following after, and that is it probably why like the story really like has so much meaning to me, because I always like every time I think of those two values, I'm always like refer to that story, and like parts of it that I would say correlate to respect and humility is like anytime you think of visiting like a neighboring island or like any place that's not your own, right, you always want to show respect and gratitude, and even in like moments where they try to accommodate you, right, and like be a good host, of course, like as a guest you still want to be like really gracious and not accept it. And that's where the humility comes into play, right, because even though like they put out their backs to give you this, like you still want to remain composed and I don't know, like kind of reflect that in a way. And I guess that's for us how you show it. So, yeah. %. Storytelling to me is, I guess, like a way of looking into people's minds, especially those that come before you, right? Like the creativity, the imagination. And I think it's so important, especially to us as like indigenous people, right? These are our connections to the culture and in a time where like things are just constantly changing, right? You want to be able to hold on to things, and storytelling gives us that comfort. I guess one person that I would really want to highlight and shed light on is, the one that influenced me probably the most, and that was my aunt, my mom's oldest sister. So a little background about her. She was one of the oldest girls in the family of like 7, and she kind of had to drop out of her school and care for the family. And she was known like amongst all of my family members as kind of like the main caretaker and really like the knowledge holder. Like a lot of other like her siblings came to her for like knowledge of like cousins and then other clans. Like she was just that person, and I'm very grateful because she I was sort of like the querida to her in a way. Like she raised me like since I was a baby to she would even take me in like to her, fly me out to Guam to live with her for a bit, and she really instilled in me like the values of our culture and just a lot of the history that I feel like if I hadn't been exposed to that from her, I just wouldn't be who I am today because of it. I wouldn't think so. I think with these stories, and the reason why I think we fight so hard to keep them alive and relevant today is because they're timeless. There's not much meaning that can be changed to them because they're just so simple, right? Like, when you think of the word respect, like it's one single word, but there's just so much that goes into it, right? Like, and that can encompass it. So, I think it's timeless. I don't think that it could be changed over time, but it's definitely something that we need to keep in mind with, external factors coming into play. I guess with my own experience, one thing that I would want them to keep in mind is just knowing that they always have a voice that should be heard at all times, and that they should always be seeking to be heard. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not being heard in one place, go to another place and then, the right people will find you. But coming from such a small island such a small community, right? Like, we're very close and we have so much amazing stories to tell, and we have such an amazing history and amazing people that we should continue to pay homage to. And through that, it lives through us, right? We are the reason that it still thrives today, and therefore our voices should be heard.